It's crazy. And I hear agents say this all the time. It's a different market. Like, oh my God, this market's crazy. Can you believe how crazy the market is? It's nuts. And then all of a sudden, things slow down a little bit. And then every cocky agent starts telling me like how it's a different market. And the market's like totally different because we went through a bubble in the first couple months of the year. No, we didn't go through a bubble. We just we're tied. Like we are literally tied like an anchor getting thrown in the ocean and pulled down by the rental cycle, okay? And the rental cycle dictates the real estate market for the first 6 months of the year. This is Laricy Live, and I'm your host, Matt Laricy, giving you unfiltered access to the world of real estate. We cover market trends, news, and give you the honest answers that will keep you ahead of the real estate game. Okay, so today we are talking about inventory. Here comes the inventory. Inventory has been low in half the markets we work, and it's been pretty high in the other half of the markets we work. But a lot of people have been asking, like, when is more inventory going to come on the market? What's happening with inventory levels? And as we're starting to see more inventory hit the market, we figured it'd be a good time to kind of talk a little bit more in detail about the inventory levels. So right now they're saying, first question is, what is the current inventory levels in Chicago? So we're going to just talk about the inventory levels in the markets that we work. So like the west side of the inventories, let's call it like, Logan, Wicker, Buck, Westtown. Those are hovering around, 1.2 to 1.4 months of inventory. So balanced market, 4 months. 1.2 months, it's a hardcore seller's market. Lincoln Park and Lakeview is hovering around about 1.6 to 1.8 months of inventory. So again, low inventory. When we look at the areas of Gold Coast, River North, Streeterville, and Old Time, we're hovering around like 5-ish months of inventory. The New East Side and the Loop has about 6 months of inventory. The South Loop has about 5 months of inventory, and the West Loop has about 4.6 months of inventory. So as you can see, half the market is a hardcore seller's market. The other half of the market is more of like a balanced slight edge to the a balanced slight edge to the buyer's market. So that's kind of where it's happening. How different is inventory across the neighborhoods? As we just kind of discussed, it is vastly different. There's still the mentality that the smaller the building, the more residential feel, the better the market. However, we are starting to see that kind of change. What's driving inventory changes in Chicago? I think the main things was the people not going back to work and the crime and COVID. And now that they've kind of said COVID is kind of like just here to stay and the masks are off, I think that's going to start to change. Our rent's going to go going up to recoup pandemic losses. So essentially, rents right now are at an all-time high. So rents dropped like 20-something% during the height of COVID. I mean, they were giving away cards pretty much for people to rent their places at these big buildings. Now, inventory is almost completely dried up in rents, and rents are just like literally crushing it. And does the rental market impact inventory? Of course it does. Because here's the thing is that first off, it affects it in twofold. One, there's a lot of people, let's say like in the city, the heart of the city, like the downtown, like River North, Streeterville, et cetera. During the height of the pandemic, the inventory got to as high as 24 months. And people are like, well, how did that happen? Well, because for the first time in history, the rental market was worse than the sales market. So nobody was buying, nobody was selling. There was no action. So inventory kept building. Now you have a lot of the inventory that's even starting to kind of get rolled off in like the high-rise markets because now people can rent them and get a great price for them. So people are like, well, hey, listen, even though maybe the market's not back yet, I still think we're about maybe 12 months from being back in the high rises. People are like, fuck it, I'll rent it for another year, get a great number, and I'll put it on next year. So one, it's making sellers feel less pressure to have to sell or take a bad price. Two, rentals affect the inventory because a lot of renters are looking at their bills and like, wow, where interest rates are and where they're going and where rental rates are and where they're going, it's cheaper or almost as cheap for me to buy than it is to rent. So it's pushing renters to become buyers, which then, of course, if there's more demand, that's going to suck up more of the inventory. So it's kind of a double punch of how the rental market can affect the inventory levels. And again, this is exactly why the market was so tough with inventory during the pandemic and why it was exact opposite. Why do you think Chicago is outperforming sales in other cities right now? I don't really think, I mean, most of the city, the downtown markets isn't really outperforming anything. Suburbs are crushing it compared to the city. I do think it's starting to change. We're already starting to see a lot of people. A big thing we're seeing is a lot of people saying that they were going to move to the suburbs, didn't see what they liked, and then came back to the city. That's a big market, but I wouldn't say that we're outperforming any city really. In fact, we're underperforming. You compare us to like, I just had a client send me an email. Eric, I know you watch these. He sent me an email in Utah where there's like 20 plus offers on properties and people going, $100,000 over ask price. I mean, we're not seeing that type of stuff here in Chicago. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like every now and then it happens and, maybe a buyer's watching this and like, Matt, that happened to us. Yeah, I mean, listen, once in a blue moon it happens. Does it happen on a regular basis? No. But that happens on a regular basis in other cities. How will the market shift when more inventory comes to market? What's going to happen here? Here's what's going to happen, guys. More inventory is going to come on the marketplace. There's a lot of big target dates of when inventory is going to hit, okay? So one of the dates is right after the first of the year, January 3rd. Second date, day after the Super Bowl. Third date, spring break, okay? So depending on when this gets released, we may either be in spring break or just out of spring break. But we as humans, we use target dates. So like, okay, we're going to list during spring break. A big portion of the inventory that hasn't really been in existence is single family homes and big 3 and 4 bedroom condos. And a lot of my clients are like, well, I don't understand why we're not seeing a ton of these. And I said, well, listen, even in a bad year, we don't see that many of them at this time of year. And people ask me why. Why do we not see a ton of them? Well, here's the thing, guys. A lot of people have 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms or single family homes. They have kids, okay? And their kids are in school or daycare. And they've already paid that bill. And guess when that, the school year ends or daycare ends? It ends in June. So if you list in February and somebody wants a 45-day close, that means you're out in mid-April and that kind of disrupts your whole family. Now, if you list in end of March, okay, and we do a 45-day close, April, May, you're kind of right there. So now maybe you're only pulling your kid out, or you could try, not everything's meant to sell in a day, right? So like even if it sits on the month, then you're mid-June, or you could try to ask for a longer close. And that's why we're going to start seeing a lot of more inventory come. When that more inventory hits the market at the same exact time, demand starts to slip, okay? So, right now this is being shot towards the end of March. We're in the peak season. Like this is the hottest it's going to get all year from now till mid-April. Then from mid-April, the demand starts to slowly but surely slip. And at the same exact time, inventory starts to stick a little bit more. And by June 1st, 50% of the demand is out of the marketplace. We should timestamp this so we have this for when June 1st hits that I called it. Because here's the thing, guys. Chicago, most rent-heavy city in the country. People's leases come due end of March, April, May, first part of June. June 1st, people are done. Okay, so now we're only dealing with 50% of the demand. And at the same time now, we have inventory that's kind of higher than we had at the first part of the year with 50% of the less demand. So what does the laws of supply and demand mean? Well, it's going to sit. And when we talk about how is pricing affected, well, pricing comes down. Now, if you're watching this, like, well, I'm under the gun, but maybe I should wait. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea to wait till the summer because you're getting a little bit of a better price. How much of a better price are we talking about? Well, let's use easy numbers. Let's say something's on the market today at $500,000. It may sell with multiple bids at $520,000. If that same property comes to the market on June 1st at $500,000, you might be able to get it for $490,000 or $495,000. So we're talking about a $20,000 to $25,000 delta. Okay, so I'm not saying that's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. If you love the place and you need to extend your lease and there's extra fees for it, and you look at the math problem, maybe it is only like a $7,000 difference. The reality is like you got to buy when you want to buy, but the overall inventory is going to grow. At the same time, it's going to make prices not go for as high. Why are you expecting more inventory to keep hitting? Well, first off, the average consumer, the average seller thinks the best time to list is end of March, April, May, and first part of June. That's when the best part of time most sellers think. I don't know why. I don't know who told them that, but that's when they think. They say, hey, spring, let's list during the spring. In spring, March, April, May, that's spring, okay? So the average seller is like, let's target then. It's also super cold in Chicago for those that don't know, okay? It snows a lot. January, February, and first part of March are like literally the worst months of the year for weather. So a lot of people just think that a lot of people aren't looking, but they don't realize that the hottest markets are January, February, March. And anybody that tells me I'm wrong, I'd be willing, we could put a bet on the table about it, okay? Because here's the thing. Look at the biggest agents on InfoSparks, how much real estate they close in April, May, and June, okay? Now when you say, well, Matt, if they're closing in April, that means they'd list in April. No, guys. Those are people who went under contract in January and February, and they did a little bit of a longer close. Those are people who went under contract in February and March and did like an April or May close. That's why the most closings happen in April and May. So the reality is that what we're seeing happen right now is that we're seeing this demand kind of peak and inventory just now starting to pick up. Another reason I think inventory is going to keep coming on the market is that we have the biggest market share in the city, according to the MLS, when you look at the market share button, okay? So you go to market share, technically according to the MLS, we have the most. Now, what I'm seeing personally happen is that now I'm going on 5 listing appointments for every 1 buyer's consultation. Whereas, 60 days ago, I was doing 5 buyer's appointments for every listing appointment, okay? And now every single listing appointment I go on, they tell me the same thing. I'm glad. I want to beat the spring rush. I want to get it on the market for the spring market. I'm like, well, the spring market was 2 months ago, and people are like confused. I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm like, time is ticking. You got to get the place on the market now, like right now. So the reality is that these are the reasons why that I know more and more inventory is going to keep coming on the market. Now, if you're in the suburbs watching this, I can't talk about what's happening in Winnetka or Orland Park or Hinsdale, okay? I'm only talking about the markets that we work. I do think, though, I really do think that there's going to be a lot more inventory hitting in those markets in the summertime, too. When do sellers typically decide to list their homes? Again, spring, March, April, May. That's when most of them think they want to list their homes. How will more inventory impact the downtown condo market? I think that the downtown condo market is going to actually thrive when the more inventory hits. I think there's going to be a lot more demand coming from like areas that we've needed, like empty nesters. We're going to be seeing out-of-state buyers come back a little bit more. We just did a whole podcast describing this why, but I think, of course, the downtown market's going to have a little bit more inventory than we have now. So it's going to impact it in like a semi-negative way, but I do think that the confidence is going to continue to grow in the downtown, like the high-rise markets, and I think that's going to eventually make that inventory become. I think that market's going to be more of a balanced market. At the same time, in the outskirts of the downtown markets, like the Lincoln Park, Wicker Park, Bucktowns, I think the impact it's going to have is we're going to see a lot less multiple bids. It's crazy, and I hear agents say this all the time. It's a different market. Like, oh my God, this market's crazy. Can you believe how crazy the market is? It's nuts. And then all of a sudden, things slow down a little bit, and then every cocky agent starts telling me like how it's a different market. And the market's like totally different because we went through a bubble in the first couple months of the year. No, we didn't go through a bubble. We just we're tied. Like we are literally tied like an anchor getting thrown in the ocean and pulled down by the rental cycle, okay? And the rental cycle dictates the real estate market for the first 6 months of the year. So when we talk about like how this is going to affect it and what's more inventory going to do, it's going to soften up prices and loosen up multiple bids in the outskirts, and the downtown market is going to be a little bit more of a balanced market. Are you still calling this the year of the condo? Absolutely. I mean, so far I've been completely right on this call of the year of the condo. I mean, look at inventory levels. It's been dropping consistently. Cranes put out an article the other day like how this is one of the best, luxury sales that we've seen for condos. I mean, condos are raging back. Now, again, guys, I'm not saying like in the heart of the downtown market, it's like a hardcore seller's market by any means, but when we compare it to where it was last year, I mean, it's literally night and day. I mean, we have a lot of listings that haven't had any showings in months. Okay, so it's not like it's a phenomenal market, but we're at least getting showings, and at least we're seeing people, and at least we're hearing from people getting relocated and want to buy condos again. So yeah, I'd say it's the year of the condo. When I said that this would be the year of the condo, if you go back and watch what I said it's the year that condo sales come back. It's the year that condo sales exist again, because for the 2 years before that, they were in the gutter. Will more inventory hurt home values? And we discussed it. The inventory levels are going to affect the outskirts more than it's going to hurt the high rises, but it's going to definitely have some sort of impact on it. My best advice for sellers right now, get it on the market. Timing's everything. If you go on the market, after July 4th, which is another, we have spring break, guys. Then after that, we have Memorial Day. Then we have July 4th. Everybody uses like holidays as target dates to list. Once Memorial Day hits, another huge amount of inventory hits the market. And then once July 4th hits, totally different market. If you got a simplex on the market, July 15th, and you're like, well, my neighbor next door has the same exact simplex sold in one day on the market for $10,000 or more than what we're asking, timing. Everything's about timing. Right now, maybe a week ago, I wish I would have invested more money in, X company because the stock market took a hit. Now it's already, rebounded. Everything's about timing. I can't wish for the past. I can only tell you what's going to happen in the moment. So right now, if my advice for you, what do I do if I want to sell? Get it on the market. Should have got on the market yesterday. But every day that goes by from here, your property's going to be worth less. Are comps still going to stand when there's suddenly more inventory available? I mean, I don't know what that question means because I don't know why a comp would stand. But I will tell you that people aren't going to be overpaying from the comps in the outskirts as the inventory hits. Like right now, a lot of people are paying more than what the place is worth. Something's worth $600,000, they're paying $620,000. There's going to be that same property going for $600,000 in the summer market, let's call it, okay? So people aren't going to be reaching. People aren't going to be overpaying for properties. People aren't going to feel the pressure. That's the big thing too, is like real estate's a big mental game. So I get a lot of clients that are always asking me like, well, I don't understand, like why is this working like this? Like why, like my friend told me this, or like why is $5,000 less make a big difference? Like it's listed at $500,000, we listed at $495,000, like, and then all of a sudden it sells. Why? It's mental. Right now, the mentality in 50% of the market is that it's a hardcore seller's market. People are seeing their friends get outbid. People are seeing 5 places they want to see get all sold before they could go there. So it's making them nervous. So when the right one comes on it, they jump. Whereas in the summertime, you want to see 5 properties. 4 days later, all 5 are going to be on the marketplace, so they don't feel that pressure. Are a lot of your clients still leaving Chicago? There are, but not as many. But we're also in the spring season. I think the summer market's when we're going to start seeing a lot of people talk about leaving the city. A lot of my sellers I go on listing appointments with. I mean, I went on 3 listing appointments yesterday. Every single one of them was leaving Chicago and going to Florida. All 3 of them were leaving because of crime. It's just a fact. That's why they said they were leaving. It'll be weird to see what happens in the summer market of what happens in the city on a crime and COVID perspective. And I think that's going to dictate whether or not we see more and more people leave the city. What types of buyers are you seeing the most right now? Right now, today, first-time buyers, because they're tied to the rent cycles. 60 days from now, we're going to be seeing more out-of-state and empty nester buyers. But right this second, first-time buyers are going to be the driving ship pretty much till the end of May. And then we won't see, probably 50% of our buyers in the summer will only be first-time buyers. But right now, it's all first-time buyers for the most part. I mean, yeah, of course, we got luxury buyers, outside, all this other stuff, but majority, first-time buyers. Which properties are flying off the market the quickest? 3 to 6 unit buildings, under $750,000. Duplex downs, under $1 million that are 3 bedrooms or more. Those are the ones that are selling the fastest. The ones that are selling the worst, small condos in high-rises, or big condos in like co-op buildings. Those are the worst ones.